Hello, debt warriors, and welcome back to another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. I'm your host, Katie O'Shea. Today, we're diving into an essential topic, financial wellness. Financial wellness isn't just about how much money you make. It's about how you manage, think about, and feel about finances. It's the key to reducing money-related stress and creating a stable financial future. Achieving financial wellness means you have a clear understanding of your financial situation and a solid plan to manage it effectively. To help break this down, I'm joined by Dr. Erika Rasure, the Chief Financial Wellness Advisor at Beyond Finances. In this episode, Dr. Erika and I will discuss the difference between financial wellness and financial stability, the habits that contribute to financial well-being, how to create a financial plan, and much more. Now let's dive into my conversation with Dr. Erika. Hi, Dr. Erika. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to having you today. We're going to talk about financial wellness and the best way to achieve it. So let's get into it. What does financial wellness mean, and how does it differ from financial stability?
I think the best way to describe the difference is, financial stability is really having that really solid financial foundation where you've got enough resources, where your bills are paid, you're not in overwhelming debt, and you generally feel stress-free. But financial wellness is feeling like emotionally and mentally and psychologically and even physically stable around all of those aspects too. So it's being financially stable, but also feeling really good about it. You're confident and you trust yourself, and you know when to ask for help and even when to seek answers or where to seek answers from. You feel this sense of hopefulness and powerfulness around your money, and you've got, a plan for your goals, and your goals align with your values, and you can be financially stable, but you can still feel stressed and anxious, and you might, avoid wanting to talk about money, or you even waffle on making, money related financial decisions. But there's that huge difference there. You can be financially stable, but you might not feel great about it. That's the biggest difference.
Right. So being financially well can impact your overall well-being. How does it impact that? Mental, emotional, physical?
Yeah. Money, it touches every dimension of our lives. It touches our relationships and our work and our jobs and our emotional and mental health. And like I mentioned earlier, our physical health. So when we are more financially well, we're going to generally experience less of that, anxiety, that better physical health, better relationships, and just generally having this improved mindset of being able to let go of the guilt and shame we might hold around money, or even that avoidance or fear that people often have when they can approach money from a more, I would say, confident and self-trusting space.
So would you say confidence is a key indicator that someone is financially healthy? What are some other things we can look for?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, indicators of financial health. But confidence, I really do believe, is one. And like I mentioned, that self-trusting space. If you feel like you know a few things about money and you're confident around those few things, but you also have the general awareness that it's okay not to have all of the answers and know when to ask for help, I think that is a huge indicator of being financially healthy as well. It's that being curious and flexible and trusting yourself enough that it's okay not to have all of these answers, but I know when and where to go to find them if I need them. Another indicator that somebody is financially healthy really comes down to their emotional state around it as well. Money unfortunately comes with a lot of baggage. A lot of people carry a lot of shame and guilt around, past financial situations or even current financial situations. And there's a lot of external voices that play into a person's view of themselves and what determines their financial health. The way we were raised definitely has an impact on what we think is financially good or financially bad. And so if a person has been acting in ways that maybe, somebody in their life, an important grown-up, had told them, was not the way you should do things, then that can create even more guilt and shame. And so someone being able to listen to their internal voice and have a solid idea and foundation of what their values are, and what those external values are that maybe influenced their financial positions on things, that can make a big difference in their overall financial health. And then of course, there's financial indicators as well. You can have a really great credit score, right, but you could be completely drowning in debt otherwise. And so it's also that acknowledgement that some of these measures of financial health aren't really metrics at all, and it's being able to determine and acknowledge which of these things are actual financial metrics and which apply to you. Because if you have an 850 credit score, but you're maxed out, you're not going to get a loan anyway.
Right. And that can cause a ton of like financial stress and stuff. So how, like when we talk about financial stress, how does that impact someone's mental and physical health? Because it definitely does, I'd say.
Absolutely does. People who are experiencing financial stress, they have significant impacts to their mental and physical health. And this is something I see weekly in all the clients I work with, is their ability to even function throughout the day can be definitely strained, because this is the forefront of their mind. They not only feel bad about their financial condition, but they also feel bad about the coulda, woulda, shouldas that got them there, the things they did or could have done better, all of those things, right? And so you take all of those things combined, and it just really can, lead to the physical symptoms of, having tummy aches or headaches or migraines or not being able to sleep. And that impact over the long term is not going to do anything for, securing somebody's financial stability, or that sense of well-being in both the financial realm, but also just general life well-being, because money affects everything. It doesn't affect that money quadrant, right?
Yeah, and I think people, if they're experiencing the stress, they may not even put it together that it's from money. They might just assume it can't be, but
Right.
definitely can cause a lot of stress in someone's life, especially if you have a partner too who's struggling with it. Yeah, it definitely adds a lot of stress.
Yeah. And, talking about partners, just real quick here, sometimes partners aren't necessarily privy to what's going on. And so sometimes, if you have instances of things like financial infidelity, where one person is maybe, carrying some secret credit card debt, and that hasn't been discussed in the relationship, there's that extreme guilt and shame from the partner that's holding that. But of course, the other partner is likely going to feel some sort of subconscious impact from that financial infidelity. Might not be able to put a finger on it, but it's definitely impacting those relationships.
What are the first steps someone should take to improve their financial wellness?
I think the very first step in improving financial wellness is just really coming to that place where you can begin to reframe your money beliefs and really begin to notice and bring awareness to how you feel about money. Right. So sometimes we have these beliefs like, I'm bad with money, or there's never enough money, or every time you go to, do your taxes, or check in with your bank balance, it brings you a lot of anxiety or stress. That's where you really need to focus first before you tackle the financial aspect of this. I know that for a lot of people, this idea of, tackling your emotions first, or at least alongside the technical aspects of financial planning, it can be a little foreign. But if you, like I said at the very beginning, you can be financially stable, but you'll never find true financial wellness without having the emotional and psychological things on lock. So you really need to start by looking at areas where your emotions, where your body is telling you, like, this doesn't make me feel good. I need to know why. And getting to the heart of that. It might be, looking back at those things you learned in childhood and growing up, things other people told you about was right and wrong with money, and starting to pinpoint and find a place where you can start dealing with those emotions, so you can both build that financial stability and wellness simultaneously.
And you talk about people's childhood. I feel like a lot of people may not even had any money talks growing up. So they might just think that's normal and they don't even want to talk about it. And it's not something to talk about.
Yeah. So many people grew up in households where, we don't talk about money, or we only talk about money in our home. We never talk about it with others external to the family. And so sometimes it brings this taboo nature, or this secrecy type of nature to the discussion around money. And it's not very healthy.
How can someone start developing good financial habits
I want to first acknowledge here that everybody, everybody has struggled with financial habits in the past. And if somebody tells you they haven't, I don't necessarily know if I believe that on face value, because everybody does struggle with many things. It takes time and practice to develop good financial habits. And sometimes when we are practicing financial habits before they are good, right?
Right.
We seek perfection first. And I just want to say first that it's progress, not perfection. Practice makes progress. It doesn't have to make perfection. And so even if you, and a lot of people will experience, really great financial habits in one area, but budgeting is really hard.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say, well, I've tried this, I've tried that, it's not working. Well, there's a reason it's not working, but you haven't just pinpointed the reason why it's not working yet. It hasn't targeted, exactly what it is that, is making it difficult. So I encourage, absolutely maintaining a spirit of learning and curiosity. If one method fails, try another. If that method keeps failing, let's look at the emotions around it. How are you feeling around this? What is your background? What is the voices externally telling you about this? And it's just keeping that progress and that momentum going. It's consistency. Good financial habits are a product of consistency and not giving up on yourself and not feeling bad. I know I mentioned the coulda, woulda, shouldas earlier, but you can't go back to the past if you want to make progress in the present towards a lasting sense of financial well-being in the future. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know until we know. And so if we know that we struggle with this particular financial habit and we're doing the same thing over and over and over again, which is the definition of insanity, we try something new instead of getting frustrated and just giving up. People give up all the time because it's easy to give up. But the reason it's especially easy to give up when it comes to money is we get so overwhelmed by financial failure that it becomes a deep source of shame and a deep source of questioning our well-being or our self-worth when it comes to our general life well-being. Like, we don't contribute much to this because we can't do this thing right, then it makes me a bad person. I've lost so because I don't know how to get my debt under control. And now my credit score is suffering. And so now I'm not a good candidate for the dating pool. I mean, it's so wrapped up in every dimension of our life. Keep going and don't let it affect your sense of self-worth.
Right. And I think there could be some pitfalls that happen that can also maybe derail people. So what are some of these common pitfalls that people might face and how can they overcome them?
Yeah, the biggest pitfall I've recognized in my practice is people not necessarily tying their financial values to their financial goals or their long-term plans for the future. And so it's so important to pinpoint what your financial values are. Some people have a good sense of what their personal values are. Somebody might value safety, for example. Well, the value of safety is going to have a different definition for everybody. And so people really should start by outlining their financial values and knowing what those are and defining them, and then tying their financial goals to their values and outlining what behaviors align with those financial goals and what behaviors don't, and then avoiding those financial behaviors or mindsets that cause them to find that misalignment between their values and their behaviors aligned with those values in pursuit of their long-term financial wellness and their goals.
And then once you've got your personal goals and your financial values in place, how can we create a financial plan that aligns with those goals?
Oh yeah, that's a natural, part of this. So when you align your financial decisions with your values, you can start to ask those questions of, okay, is this spending or this investment I want to make like in line with what I really want for myself, and does it support my values? Money should support the life that you really want, not just the external expectations. And so if you can align very clearly, you can start making those financial decisions that make sense with what it is you really want for yourself and whether it's your values.
Yeah, and that goes for everything in life too, to align all your plans with your values
Right.
because it'll keep you going.
Right.
Speaking of that, how can we develop a positive mindset around money and financial growth? Because we touched on this earlier. There can be so much stress with money and it's so negative. I
Yeah.
feel like you touched on earlier, like people don't even want to open a bank account app. because it's
No.
negative. They say they don't want the negativity of that. So how can we get past that?
I don't want the negativity, and I have a lot I have a lot of things to say about toxic positivity. So I want to be very, very clear here that we don't want to develop a toxic positive mindset around money and financial growth, right? We want to create something that is rooted in, common sense and really getting to the heart of, like I mentioned earlier, getting to the heart of those money beliefs and building around those money beliefs and beginning to reframe them. A lot of people say, I'm bad with money, or there's never enough money, and begin to recognize again that money should not be a source of shame or self-worth. Money is not the thing that should define you as a person. No one cares about your money as much as you do. Debt doesn't discriminate. There's all of these things out there that really can change, a person's mindset on money. And a lot of that has to do with life experience. And so a lot of our life experience clouds, I would say, our judgment a little bit about how we feel about ourselves in relation to our money and how we experience money compared to maybe somebody else. Our life experience influences our money experience. And so being able to understand if your life experiences or, those external voices I was talking about, figuring out where you learn those things from and breaking that apart, it allows you to find out what you truly believe, or what is really kind of the collective voices of others, and allows you to come back into yourself and find that reframing. I was told that, having debt is a bad thing, but here I am in debt. Debt is bad. Being in debt makes me a bad person. So I've got double bad, double shame. How do I unravel from that? And again, it's a lot of going back to what are your values versus the values of other people, or, society, or all of those things, and being able to work with that and include that in a part of the learning process here, but not take it at face value and don't let it define who you are, because it isn't who you are. Money is not who you are. Your debt is not who you are. You're so much more than the balance of your bank account or your credit score or how much debt you have. You are more than that. And I think finding positivity around you being more than that is really where that financial growth is going to start coming from.
Do you think that people might have a lack of positivity because they don't necessarily have any financial education? Like, how can having financial education help your long-term financial wellness even?
Financial education is so key. And unfortunately, it's something that a lot of people don't really get, right?
Right, exactly.
They don't have a lot of it. And so, when you have a good understanding of how money works and you have that knowledge and a little bit of confidence to make financial decisions, it does reduce that stress and anxiety and helps you manage and grow your money in the long term. And of course, that financial wellness piece, it'll make you feel better about it along the way. And it also helps you decisions that align with your values. But like I said, most people don't have this. And so financial education can be very intimidating. And a lot of people get to the point where they feel like they're a certain age and they need to know everything about money at that age. Well, the reality is a lot of people don't know a lot about money. Even things like you might consider most basic are not basic to the majority of people. And I've met plenty of people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, myself included, who struggle with budgeting and finding a technique that works. And these are all normal things. And so that financial education piece also has to recognize and integrate with it's okay not to know everything about everything. You don't have to be a Jack or Jill of all trades when it comes to money. That financial education piece, can really help shift the role of money as being a source of stress in your life to the role of something that is an empowering tool that enhances your overall life well-being. But a lot of people are going to have to take the initiative to get that financial education. But I want people to know that it's normal not to know everything, and don't let your lack of financial education get in the way of getting your financial education.
I also think there's a good amount of free resources out there, like podcasts, blogs, and everything, to learn a little bit more nowadays, where for there never used to be, because I didn't even learn any of this in school, most of financial education and stuff. So
Oh yeah, and there's lots of places you can go, and I can see like even the role of, Chat GPT, something like, I mean, you can get stuff from Google or, Wikipedia or whatever, but like you can use all kinds of tools out there to find some answers that you're seeking or get some direction towards those answers you're seeking. Totally.
Yeah, it's definitely being the next generation is definitely being set up to know like a little bit more about financial
Right.
education that we were.
Or as a mom of four, yes, the things they know that I didn't know are just incredible.
Do you think financial, like knowing more about financial education can help reduce your financial stress and anxiety? And what else can help reduce that stress?
I think there's a ton, like I mentioned earlier, it's that knowing of asking for help when you need it. That's a big thing. And so seeking financial education or, learning a little bit every day about something related to money can make a huge difference in the way feel about your money anxiety or stress. One of the other things I think is super important is learning how to establish financial boundaries. So whenever I talk about establishing financial boundaries, I like to preface it by saying every time you set a boundary and you say no, you say yes to yourself. So you say no to things that don't serve you. And that could be saying, I'm not going to entertain the idea of keeping up, with my neighbors. Let them buy their car or whatever. I don't know what their financial picture looks like, but that's enough for me. Setting, strict rules around, lending money. If you lend money to friends or family, I would approach that as you're agreeing that that's a gift mentally and not having any expectation. But you can also, establish that financial boundary around like overspending. Like, no, I'm not going to overspend today because that doesn't align with my values. Another thing that I think works great with reducing overall financial stress and anxiety is doing routine money check-ins as a part of yourself and making it a part of your routine. It could be weekly, it could be monthly, or even you can do it around, financial tasks that you don't like. For example, just to make things more enjoyable for yourself. I'm not a big fan of doing my taxes. I know how to do them. I can do them. I find it a task I don't like. So every time I sit down to do my taxes every year, I go to the gas station. I get a Diet Dr. Pepper and some tamales, and it makes me enjoy doing my taxes just a little bit more, a little treat for that. And so making a routine or a ritual around doing a money check-in is a great way to take control and feel like you're in control. And that's another thing, focus on what you can control when it comes to your money. You can control a lot and try not to worry about the external things. There's a lot going on all around us. Those are things we as individuals, we just really can't control. And so focus on what you can and worry not about the other things.
So maybe like a money check-in monthly that could help with your long-term financial success. What are some things people can do like daily to help with their long-term financial success?
So number one, I'd like to start with prioritizing self-care. And so this could be meditation or yoga, exercise, moving your body in any way, going for a walk, things like journaling or breathing. But I think self-care has such an important role in giving way to, aspects of financial self-care. I think that is such a key part. And so you can do that every single day, first by bringing awareness to your body, the presence of you in your day, so that you can bring awareness to your money every single day. And that could be by practicing, a little bit of financial gratitude, like, hey, I was able to pay this bill on time, or I'm really happy I was able to buy this cup of coffee today, or whatever that looks like for you. But bringing that awareness to your self-care starts to bring awareness to your financial self-care, which is something that should be practiced every single day. As long as, checking in on your emotions and your values before you make a financial decision, allowing yourself that freedom, that space to spend mindfully. It's okay to walk away from a cart in Target if you need to. It's okay to leave your Amazon cart hanging out for 24 hours. And give yourself that space. Making a daily commitment to learn something new about money. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, or even ask for help if you need it. Maybe today is a day where you read a few pages in, a financial related book, but maybe today is also a day where you learn something from that book and you want to explore more about it, or it makes that extension to, I need help with this, so I need to find somebody who can help me with it. Journaling about how you're feeling about your money, I think, is super beneficial. And it's something you can do daily to where you can include celebrations of things you feel like you did right with your money. A lot of that stuff is very morally neutral, but for each individual, paying a bill on time or walking away from that, Amazon cart, that's something that should be celebrated and documented.
And then if you keep doing it too, it'll become like a habit over time.
That consistency.
So consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Dr. Erica, I think you answered all my questions today. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Yes, I really appreciated it. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Financial stability and financial wellness aren't the same thing. While stability means meeting your financial obligations, true wellness goes deeper. It's about feeling in control, reducing financial stress, and building a secure future. Just like overall well-being requires healthy habits, financial wellness is about making mindful money choices every day to create long-term security and freedom. Remember, financial wellness isn't a financial destination. It's an ongoing journey that evolves throughout your life. By committing to this process, you're setting yourself up for a more balanced and fulfilling financial future. And with that, we wrap up another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. And if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate and review us there. I'll talk to you next time, Millennials, Gen Z, and everyone else tuning in. Bye.